Hi guys and welcome to Gaming Watcher. My name is Rolson and in this video I'll go through the new Europa Reveal trailer just released by Bungie for Destiny 2 Beyond Light. So let's break down this trailer bit by bit to extract all the information that we are actually getting in this video and then talk about what it means for the future of Destiny 2, because there's a lot here. Let's get into it. So before we dive deep into this trailer, I just want to talk a little bit about the weather. Yeah, because Bungie just released this blog post on bungie.net showing off some of the new weather systems that were created for this destination. So normally the weather in Destiny is pretty static, but apparently just for Europa they have made dynamic weather that can change and transform according to the post. This is something that is also used in the storytelling, so the weather can fit whatever is going on in the story. So there are blizzards on Europa, and as I understand it, there can basically be 3 different levels of blizzards that they describe in the article here. So the first level is no blizzard at all. Okay, so there are actually only 2 levels of blizzard, mild and heavy. They also show pictures of the different levels. Here's level 1, level 2 and level 3. So when a blizzard is level 3, it will be difficult to see anything it says here, and in some ways it will also affect movement, I think. At least it's said that they have tried many different solutions, even things like knocking you off the sparrow if the wind was too strong, or altering the path of grenades thrown in the blizzard. But it says in the article that that became way too annoying and too disruptive to gameplay. And then we get a nice little soundbite that actually really sets the tone for how Europa is going to feel. Just listen to this. Now let's get into the trailer. So the first interesting thing we see is this arch structure with what seems to be a guardian standing inside it. I definitely think that what we're seeing here is from the new Deepstone Crypt raid because of the unique architecture, and it kind of looks like a place where a raid would end and you get the final reward. If you look really close, you can actually see that there's something shining or pulsating with light in front of the guardian standing in the arch. It's very subtle, but it's there. I think this is the end of the Deepstone Crypt raid where you get the final chest. The next thing we see looks a lot like what we see right now in the Season of Arrivals with the public event on Io and Titan. This could be some sort of new public event happening on Europa. It could be part of the campaign, it could be anything really, but I'm pretty sure that what we're seeing here is some sort of pyramid, aka the darkness. Then the next thing we see here is some very peculiar looking scripture in the snow. No, I'm kidding guys. But there is actually something interesting in this clip as well. You see just a slight glow under the ice, a vague red glow that we have seen before in the release trailer for Beyond Light, if I remember correctly. The next 2 clips are not really that interesting. We see someone sparring over the ice and then a fallen camp of some sort, but then we see this, and this I also think might be from the new raid because of the architecture, but it might also be from the strike. There is some footage a little later in the video that I'm positive is from the strike, but we'll get to that. What I think is a bit weird here is that the enemy here is Vex. I mean, Vex is very connected to the light and the dark, and we've gotten hints in the lore that the Vex is even some sort of force made to create balance in the universe between the light and the dark. So it definitely makes sense for them to be around, but I hadn't expected them to be part of the raid. The raid, as far as we've seen so far, is against the Fallen. Well, that just means that this might be a strike or even some sort of lost sector. It could actually very well be a lost sector on Europa filled with Vex. That would be kind of cool if lost sectors look this high tech. It also kind of looks like the inside of a pyramid ship. Imagine if there was actually a lost sector within a pyramid ship, like underground for example on Europa. That would be kind of awesome. Then we see some guardians standing under what seems to be a pyramid, and this might have something to do with how we get our stasis powers. The guardian does not seem to be fighting this pyramid, neither does it seem like the guardian is incapacitated. It seems more like some sort of machine or shrine where the guardian is willingly standing, maybe as part of the process of receiving the stasis powers. So this might be something that we see in the campaign. I imagine that getting the stasis powers will be part of the campaign in Beyond Light. And then we see something very interesting. And this is also something that I actually predicted in one of my previous videos. We see Varix. Varix that I predicted to be the raid boss is actually in Beyond Light. So I might actually be right about that. He might also play an entirely different role, but he's there, so yeah. I was right. Anyways, the next interesting thing we see in the trailer is the scope that reveals some enemies in the distance. This is seen before in other scopes, but it seems like it has a lot more utility in a place like Europa, where it seems to be dark and there are blizzards and so on. This is clearly a part of the weapon set that has been revealed, which looks pretty awesome. Then a little bit later we see this clip of a guardian jumping, and in the background we see some sort of darkness structure. This is not a pyramid ship per se, but it is clearly some sort of pyramid structure. So what this means is that not only is there a pyramid on Europa, but the darkness has settled in, just like it is said in the actual trailer voiceover.
Europa has been home to darkness for some time now.
So I think we can expect to see a lot more of the pyramids. I definitely think that we're going inside the pyramids at some point, so I expect to see a lot more of the inside like we did in the Shadowkeep campaign. Then we see the other side of that arch structure that we saw right at the beginning of the trailer, and I still think that this has to do with the raid just because of the grandiose design. This is either the end or the beginning of the raid. Either way, it looks really cool. Once again, Bungie has created an awesome environment for this destination. Then we see this Braytech facility, and at first glance I thought that this was part of the raid, but then I realized that we are seeing a 3-man fire team, so this might actually be part of the strike. I think they're mixing some clips together here to make it difficult to get an idea of what we're actually shown, but I think that this first clip with the 3-man fire team is a strike. I think we then see a part of the raid where we're actually inside the Deepstone Crypt, and then we cut back to the raid again, hence the 3-man fire team. In the middle of this there's a clip that doesn't even last 1 second that I think is incredibly interesting. This is either something huge or it's nothing at all, but what we see is a kind of glass cylinder with some sort of machine or contraption inside it. It looks very much like this is inside the Deepstone Crypt, and what is inside is on one side an exo body and on the other side a Vex. What does this mean? Does this mean that the Deepstone Crypt is not only creating exos but also Vex? If my theory is correct that the Fallen have taken over the Deepstone Crypt to create their own exo warriors, are they also creating Vex? Is that why Europa seems to be crawling with Vex? I think this is insanely interesting. Why would a Vex be inside the Deepstone Crypt looking like it is just part of the processing procedure like the exo body? I think someone is creating their own Vex, and maybe this is the reason for the new Vex enemy type that we see a little bit later in the trailer. Anyways, shortly after this we see a Fallen boss fight against 3 Guardians, and I also think that this is from the strike on Europa. It could also be from something else, like remember when we got the moon, we also got all the nightmare hunts. There could be some sort of new kind of activity like this on Europa that you also play in 3-man fire teams, and this might be from something like this. We see the Fallen boss fire what looks a lot like some stasis attack, and just a few seconds later we see another Fallen wielding stasis. This Fallen is actually doing some attack that looks just like that new Titan stasis super that we've seen in previous trailers. These Fallen wielding stasis, if you look at them real close, also look a lot different from the other Fallen. It looks like they have wires attached to them and also maybe exoskeletons or just some high-tech looking armor. Then we see another new weapon here, a heavy grenade launcher that looks pretty cool. We also see this auto rifle looking thing. It might also be a machine gun, but it looks a little bit too small for that. I'm betting on an auto rifle for this one. Then we see the swarm of Vex that might have been created in the Deepstone Crypt. This kind of reminds me of the Vex invasions in the beginning of this year with the season of the Undying. This might be some seasonal thing just like that. I'm pretty sure at least that the next thing we see is the seasonal activity, since it looks like you're in some sort of big arena and there are these different colored crystals hanging in the air. I could see this being a seasonal activity, but it could also just be something different, like an extra activity for Europa. It would be nice with one of those for a change, you know, like we had the blind well in the Dreaming City. Then we see the Exo Stranger with a pyramid shaped artifact in her hand, and I actually think that this is exactly what this is. It would fit so perfectly if the seasonal artifact in the first season was some sort of pyramid or darkness artifact, and that you obtain it during the campaign as you get the stasis powers. I think that is exactly what is going to happen. After that, we see a Guardian fighting the Insurrection Prime from a Scourge of the Past raid. This seems to be a new enemy type for the Fallen and Beyond Light, and that is going to be pretty interesting since we have only seen this as the last boss in the Scourge of the Past. How this enemy type is going to function mechanically is pretty interesting. We kind of see a little bit of it here. It flies up and kind of opens up just like a Fallen Walker, so that might be a mechanic that is used to take down these things. Right after this, we see this new Vex enemy type that I was talking about, and it kind of looks like a Harpy and a Vex Goblin had a child. This thing looks kind of freaky, but what is even more freaky is the attack that we see here, where it kind of just lunges at you and then explodes. So that's it. That's everything that we see in the trailer that is worth talking about. Now we also got a full map reveal of the Europa destination. Let's just take a look at that real quick before we go our separate ways. So the first thing you notice when you look at this is that this looks like a huge destination. It doesn't look like it's the size of like Mars or Mercury or Titan. It looks more like it's the size of something like the EDC actually. Like there's a lot of zones here that you can go to. So starting from the top, we have the Eventide Ruins. Once home to thousands of settlers and now all that remains of Clovis Bray's colony. So we also saw this place in the trailer, and this is apparently some old Bray Tech facility that looks like it's kind of invaded by the Fallen by now. The next one is the Asterian Abyss. The Vex structures visible on the surface are only the tip of the iceberg. So there's clearly some Vex structures here that kind of looks like the Pyramidion, and they say that it's only the tip of the iceberg, so there might be like a whole lost sector or something else, or a strike or something beneath the ground here that is totally like Vex technology, just like the Pyramidion basically. Then we have the Cadmus Ridge, a snowy landscape and the last known location of the buried Bray Exoscience facility. So this must be kind of where the Deepstone Crypt is, or at least near it, since this is the Exoscience facility, and it looks kind of like the outside. If you think about how the Deepstone Crypt, what we've seen of the Deepstone Crypt looks like inside, this could be the outside of that, but we don't know. I still hope that it is actually a black tower. Then here we have the Charon's Crossing, the site of Europa's communication center and the origin of the distress signal sent by Varix. This might be a place where, you know, the vendor is for Europa, where there's NPCs you can interact with, kind of like on the moon where Ares is standing. And it's gonna be exciting to see if Varix is actually that, if he's actually a vendor for Europa and he is here and you can talk to him because he sent out a distress signal. That might be it. He might not be like the raid boss that I predicted. He might actually be our ally and sending out this distress signal to get us to Europa because the Fallen up there are playing around with the darkness. That might be it. And then we have Beyond, and it says here, an old friend awaits us in this clearing that overlooks the conflict between light and dark. And here I definitely think that they are talking about the Exo Stranger. So the Exo Stranger might be some sort of vendor too, or NPC that we find here. This might also be like that place where you go on the moon to finish those memory quests for Ares Morn. Like somewhere where you go when you finish certain quests or bounties or something. I definitely think that the Exo Stranger is gonna be some kind of vendor that you can go to and get bounties or quests, or maybe there's some new activity like the Nightmare Hunts that is connected to the Exo Stranger. And there might even also be some sort of thing where you can roll for weapons like on the moon. I definitely think that there might be something like that. Again, this looks huge and I'm really looking forward to see how big it actually is and how many activities they put into this place. It's gonna be really awesome. If you want to connect with me or other gaming watchers, make sure to join the Discord channel. There's a link in the description. If you like this video, please actually leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you don't want to miss out on future content, make sure to turn on that notification bell and turn on all notifications. As always guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.